This girl's like you roll around with guys like.
Hi everyone, a very good afternoon and thanks for joining us for our very first lecture for Smartboard Challenge 2022. So in case you are not familiar with what Smartboard Challenge is, it's actually a flagship event of SPC2022, which is co-founded by NUS Enterprise and MPA. So this year, we have 15 innovation opportunities championed and supported by 22 maritime corporates and organizations. So for this session, the corporates have answers to your questions and I'll be sharing these answers with you. So for this Ask Me Anything session, the challenge statement is, how might we effectively monitor and assess equipment conditions on board vessels to optimize usage as well as reduce unplanned failures and operational disruptions? This is co-created by Equatorial Marine Fuel Management Services and supported by the corporate sponsor Victory. So before we dive into the answers to your questions, let's have a quick look at a short video which would summarize this innovation opportunity. Yeah, could we have the video on, please? Maybe you could give the video a little while before. So maybe in the meantime, we could begin off with a question first. So maybe the first question. Okay, I think the video is on now, so maybe.
Breakdown of equipment and machinery on board vessels during voyage can lead to a disruption of the global supply chain as well as substantial financial losses. To avoid having malfunctioning or broken equipment on board, the common practice in the maritime industry is to perform periodic or scheduled maintenance. This means maintenance is carried out at a fixed time interval regardless of the usage or condition of the equipment. Now this can lead to extended use of damaged parts, unnecessary breakdown during voyage and overstocking of spare parts. Equatorial Marine Fuel Management Services is looking to use modern and advanced technologies to more effectively monitor and assess equipment conditions and predict maintenance requirements in order to optimize usage and reduce unplanned failures and other operational disruptions.
So we'll move on to the questions that you'll be waiting for the answers for. So the first question is, what are the current regulations on placing sensors on a vessel or equipment and any constraints and or challenges? So the answer is, for engine parts or shipping parts, there are no known restrictions from regulations. There are more physical restrictions such as the cost of laying data cables, internet connectivity, wireless communications, interference between compartments. So for the second question is, someone understands that the periodic or scheduled maintenance, preventive maintenance, and emergency maintenance are common practice in the maritime industry. However, they are wondering why predictive maintenance is not widespread in the maritime industry and what might be some of the challenges of conducting predictive maintenance. So the answer for Equatorial is predictive maintenance requires hardware, which are sensors as well as data, and both of which are hardly present in older vessels, which are still mainly prevalent in the market today. It is also costly to build or to retrofit a vessel with this set of hardware. And in addition, the shipping parts and equipment makers do not provide these modifications, or there are no suitable versions for existing vessels. Because each vessel is different and has different manufacturers of various parts, this makes it costly, the specific hardware which is retrofitted for each vessel. So on the note of ship equipment and parts, the manufacturer of each equipment may not have IoT-enabled equipment as part of their capabilities, or their equipment may not be compatible with third-party modifications to retrofit it with IoT sensors. The sensors can be located in various equipments along the pipes for fuel, for power, for cargo, and dashboard controls. It really depends on the data that they are looking to capture. And for newer vessels, it depends on the original build of the vessel and the ship owner's wishes to pay a premium for the IoT-enabled equipment. They do exist, but we do see that they do see that actually digital clone systems are available, and they do mention that PSA actually has one set up in our innovation lab, However, for the majority of the vessels which are in the market today are purchased through the second-hand market, and they usually do not have such capabilities. So that was a really long answer. I think can go on to something a little bit shorter. So for our third question, which is what are some of the opportunities in adopting predictive maintenance in the maritime industry? So the answer from the corporate is that in terms of opportunities, it could be to reduce time in the shipyards, to reduce wastage in terms of operating resources such as fuel, water, power, reduce maintenance fees, which includes the timely intervention before the parts actually break down, and also to reduce overstocking or understocking of the various parts. So for the next question, it is, are existing crew members trained to perform the common practices of periodic or scheduled maintenance, as well as preventive and emergency maintenance? And also, if predictive maintenance is ideal, would there be a possibility of training the crew to learn how to use and operate these systems? So the answers from the corporate would be yes, the crew is actually trained to in these various maintenance areas of predictive of periodic maintenance, of preventive maintenance, and emergency maintenance. But there are always changes in the crew because they change every monthly or every quarterly. So there's definitely the consideration of providing new training with each set of crew. So moving on to the next question. Its innovation should not happen in a void in disregard of existing IT infrastructure. What kind of predictive maintenance or capabilities or standard operating procedures are already in place? So the answer is there are hardly actually any predictive maintenance capabilities on board the vessels today, but there are infrastructures available like data cables and 3G and 4G connectivity. However, it should be noted that this 3G and 4G connectivity is not to every corner of the vessel. Therefore, the solution should consider restrictions such in connectivity as well as limitation in the bandwidth. So the next question that we actually have is what kinds of equipment Equatorial will be looking to assess the conditions of, and will this equipment allow for the retrofitting of sensors for predictive maintenance? The answer is some of these types of equipment will include engines, pump systems, tank systems, as well as pipes. And some of these equipment may actually be able to be retrofitted, but a detailed discovery is definitely required and will also have to involve the manufacturers as well as third parties engineering people to determine whether this will be feasible. They also suggested that a quicker way may be to look at the upstream, where they look at the analog data that are currently available and digitize these data that are in the control room to make inferences. However, they did mention that this might reduce the capabilities of the solution since certain sensory data are still key for determining the health of machinery and various equipment. Following that, our next question is, could you share more what is meant by optimizing usage? Would it be in terms of energy efficiency or speeding up certain processes? And what would be some of the measures for optimizing usage? So the answer from Equatorial is, optimizing usage refers to the repairing of parts before it breaks down or servicing the parts before it actually requires any repairs. To also reduce time in the shipyard and to reduce costs and repairs would definitely be one of the ways of optimizing the usage. It refers both also to efficiency in operations as well as to reduce the parts downtime and costs in repairs and maintenance. Okay, so our next question is, are existing periodic or scheduled maintenance, preventive and emergency maintenance conducted at the shipyard, or does it happen when the ship moves between ports? So Equatorial did mention that most of the time, the engineer will actually board the vessels to run the maintenance in between the operations, and they will avoid at all costs to go to the shipyards unless it's necessary, since each trip to the shipyard is costly both in terms of time and in terms of money. And as Equatorial actually does not operate overseas, they do not move between ports in that sense. Okay, maybe we could actually move on to some questions relating to the solutions for this challenge statement. So the first question would be, what are some important parameters that will be required for predictive maintenance solution, and where could the solution providers obtain this information? So Equatorial responded and said some of the parameters will include the expected input, the expected output, age of the part, the connected parts, the manufacturer, and the running usage hours. And in terms of where the solution providers could actually obtain this information, solution providers could actually work with the vessel owners, since each vessel is different. And because Equatorial actually purchases from different markets, from different parts of the world, so each vessel is actually unique and it's specific. But they are open to working with the solution providers to, head down to these vessels to look at a general data set. But for implementation, there would still be a need to look at the specific vessels. So the next question we actually have relating to the solution would be, will a solution provider be expected to provide both the hardware as well as the software? The short answer from Equatorial is either both hardware and software is fine, but definitely having both would help. And most importantly, they should be able to integrate with other softwares. The next question is, will the solution have to cover both predictive maintenance and optimizing usage of the vessel equipment? Equatorial says, no, it doesn't have to, because the use case focus isn't specifically on predictive maintenance. So the next question is, are there other solutions that Equatorial has previously tested to optimize usage and to also reduce unplanned failures? What will be some of the gaps in these previously tested solutions? So Equatorial has responded and said the solutions are limited as they are mostly tailored for larger vessels and vessels that go on longer voyages. But they have tried simple solutions that works with information such as the last maintenance date, the running time, the time to next maintenance, and reminders. But however, these solutions assume that the health of the equipment is independent, and the right time to check for maintenance is simply based on the last maintenance date and fixed time period. It is not able to take into account related issues or parts, age of equipment, the historical maintenance data, etc. Okay, so actually we have some final words from Equatorial on this innovation opportunity that they would like to share. So this is from Equatorial, they mentioned that this is a unique segment for SMEs, but the fleet and vessel sizes are actually much smaller, and the operation area is confined to a local sea space. There are still several limitations when it comes to the cost of adapting existing solutions, especially existing solutions that are designed for larger fleet and ocean-going vessels, because Equatorial's vessels don't really move beyond Singapore, and also they are slightly smaller compared to the larger ones. Yeah. In addition, being in Singapore waters also opens possibilities. For example, we have 3G and 4G connectivity that is usually quite stable, except for a few blackout spots, and we are still relatively close to shore. Those shore-to-sea operations are also feasible, and some of these operations include drone deliveries. If the solution can minimize modification requirements to the existing equipment to implement, it will definitely be much easier to adopt. And also a progressive implementation approach may also help when sensors are incrementally added on, and in the process will also increase the prediction of equipment health. On another note, they did mention that thinking outside the box of IoT, we can also create a digital clone with the equipment documentation and match it with the knowledge management system, such as the maritime stack overflow for maintenance crew, which allows historical data and engineered inputs to be better utilized, and this can also be a viable approach. Yeah, so I think we have actually come to the end of all the questions that you have asked and the corporates have answered. So for the startups that are listening in, we encourage you to put forth your solutions, which is when we are closing it. And if you want to find out more about any of the innovation opportunities, we could scan the QR code that should be on the slide. Yeah, we could also sign up for other roadshows which are happening in the next few weeks to learn more about innovation opportunities. So for next week, we have 2 roadshows, one with ADS and the other one with PSA. So during these roadshows, the corporates will actually be present to share their answers, and you could directly ask them any of the questions and answers you might have. And if you're joining us physically, you'll be able to network with these corporates. Yeah, so also please continue to follow us on LinkedIn and social media, when you can get the latest updates on what Clear21 is doing and how we are being involved in industry and any other opportunities that might come about. So thank you everyone, and thanks for joining us today.